I wish it was like first phase Marika and then second phase Radagon. I'm not even sure how Marika would fight though, because I think it wasn't the whole deal that Radagon was like her fist and she was like just the mastermind. So it's almost like when you're fighting Radagon, you are fighting Marika, but also they're the same person. I guess, yeah, you're right. I think actually that would be a good way to handle the fight. Have Marika have very different attacks or have them switch. If they switch between personas, like mid-fight, that would actually be kind of cool too. So it's like Marika does ranged magic attacks more so than any melee stuff. Hits less hard but moves a lot faster. And then Radagon is like smashing people with a hammer. It's like, I think, yeah, that would definitely be pretty cool, I think. I'm not as prepared to make the Elden Ring video now. Like, it's a good script that had I made it in like June, I think it would have been a good video, but now it's like, too many more things have happened, including DLC being announced, so it's like I gotta really think here about what I'm gonna do. I loved Elden Ring though. I like it quite a lot. I think it's a really good game, and I know that Theo is less hot on it, and I'm more in agreement with Theo on things like Devil May Cry and Hi-Fi Rush. But I mean, you know, we can disagree, and I appreciate his perspective, and I don't even necessarily think he's wrong about the things that I disagree with. I guess I just like, yeah, those are problems, but I guess they just don't matter that much to me. And like I can realize that, you know, it's like, well, I understand it is a problem that, say, a lot. The easiest one is repeating bosses, right? Lots of bosses are repeated in Elden Ring, and that is not a good thing because it does make a lot of the fights seem kind of repetitive. And he's 100% correct about it devaluing the boss bar, like the idea of having a boss health bar when you're just fighting a slightly stronger version of enemies that you're fighting out in the world. That is a problem, but it also, I guess once I understood that that's what they were doing with a lot of the open world content and the bonus dungeons and things like that, I accepted that because I'm just like, okay, they're almost like dailies. Like they're just like little variations of a thing that you get new points for, or skill up, or upgrade materials for the most part, or things like the bells that you can use to get the better upgrades. But I found it to be a lot of fun to go searching for those too. So it's like, well, it's almost like I would be playing the main story of Elden Ring and thinking of it a lot like playing a Dark Souls game, but then every time I was just exploring in the world, the part of my brain that was activating is kind of more the part of my brain that, well, is obviously not paying attention to this moment in the story right now, but we're off to save Alphinaud's sister, because like apparently she needs healing stuff, right? But anyways, I'm sure I'll pick it up in the next thing, because again, MMO quests tend to get a little bit repetitive, and you sort of don't have to pay attention to the story unless they start voice acting, because that does actually, the story does kick up like crazy in this game, and you do have to pay attention because it has good payoffs. But what I mean is that MMO brain, the part of my brain that I was using to play Destiny, when I used to play a lot of Destiny, just on my PS4, I had a clan and I would be playing it all the time. And a lot of the time I wasn't like pushing to do really rewarding content. It was more, hey, I'm just gonna hop on and do a couple things because I can listen to a podcast and just do this while I'm doing it. It's something for my hands to do, something for my brain to do, and it's fun. And I could do that with Elden Ring when I was just exploring. And every so often I would find something that, especially on a first playthrough or even a second one when I just searched an area that I hadn't looked in as thoroughly before, you find new that's really cool, and then all of a sudden it's not, oh, I'm no longer idly playing this, I'm not listening to a podcast, now I'm doing this really crazy thing that I had no idea was even here. And that was happening a lot, so I guess I see a lot of value in that design. Even if a lot of the stuff was relatively repetitive, hey, it's a similarly designed cave that leads nowhere super special, and a boss that you've probably already fought before, but now there's two of them. And it's like, yeah, like fair enough, like that isn't awesome. But also, sometimes I get down to the bottom of the cave and it would open up to a whole new area of the map that I didn't even know existed. And then I'd be down that rabbit hole and end up fighting a really crazy boss by the end. Or like one that's different than anything I'd seen before, even if it's one that ends up being repeated later. And I like that. I like that element of Elden Ring a lot. I get that it sucks, but it also added something for me. And I think I can make the argument why it would add a similar thing for a lot of people's experience. That said, I'm not, and I repeat, this is a very important thing that a lot of people who analyze video games fail to do. I am not making an objective argument there, though. I'm only talking about, hey, I feel like this experience gives you this kind of gratification, what some players like. And maybe it does. Maybe I'm correct if enough people agree with me on that. I know majority rules isn't the best way to bet, but if I'm the only one who thinks that, I'll admit that, yeah, not a lot of people think that. I just liked it for some reason. But with the amount of people who play stuff like Genshin Impact, I feel like there's enough people out there who don't mind a little bit of content that isn't super deep, but is broad enough that you can do a lot of it, and you get a little bit more powerful little by little as you do these things, and every so often you find something in one of them that makes you significantly more powerful, and then it feels really rewarding. But it is like a carrot on the stick for exploration. You know, like there could be something there. Whereas Dark Souls 3, figuring out that map was less like exploring this big vast world and more like figuring out a series of little puzzles. And again, that's tighter. You stuff with a time from your child. Well, but I mean, when I was a child, I wasn't listening to audiobooks and podcasts and stuff while I was doing those things, right? So like, I do think it has some value as an experience to have like an idle thing to do with your hands, like I don't know, like playing a Rubik's Cube or something, or solving one. Because once you know the algorithms, it's more just like your hands just kind of do it, and then you can solve it. I've never been good at it, but I know a couple guys in the army who are really big into Rubik's Cubes. And yeah, it's crazy how fast they solve them once they learn the skill. But I mean, people would generally be like, well, that you're actually using your brain. I'm like, you are using your brain in a video game, especially if you're playing Destiny and we're not at max level or max gear score at the time, playing a Nightfall strike, which is 2 randoms, you do have to be on the ball. But because you know the dungeon, and especially if you know the variables in that Nightfall, that'll be like, you take double damage when you're further away from the enemy, so it encourages you to get close. It would be like skulls in Halo, effectively. And those give you pretty significant rewards, but nothing that's game-changing, so you're encouraged to do them like every day if you want, because, oh wait, no, there's one a week? Yeah, I think it's weekly Nightfall. The dailies are every day, but the Nightfall is once a week. So it's like, yeah, you're encouraged to hop on there and either do it with two members of your clan or 2 just random people, and that's the kind of thing that you can kill some time with by repeating some content that you're still having fun with, because you get to a level of mastery that you're like, okay, I know exactly how to defeat this boss now, that even with these variables that I have to account for, I can still do it without even hardly paying attention. And I think that's kind of neat, and it was kind of cool being like, oh, okay, I know how to fight this kind of boss. And as much as I could very much see the argument to be like, oh god, this one again, because if it's a fight you don't like, then that's fine. But for me, usually it got to the point that I was like, okay, I can take these guys out super quick, and then it would almost be like I was just fighting a sub boss. So I actually think that Theo's got a very strong argument that content would actually be less of a piss off if they just removed the boss health bar, because you're right, I don't think it deserves it. Maybe they should do like side health bars that look a little bit different or something, or give the boss health bars that are real bosses, like a gold rim, so that you know it's something crazy is gonna happen and this isn't just a normal repeatable content thing. Like, in conclusion, I will simp for Elden Ring a little bit, because I do like Elden Ring quite a bit, and I think I can make a lot of objective arguments, but I think that most of the arguments I would have that would differ from people like Mahler or Theo would be subjective. So, like, again, I'm not saying that I would be able to convince them to agree with me, but I think I could help them understand the way I see it. And I suppose that's what I try to do more when I'm making videos, in that I'm not necessarily trying to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm just trying to be like, well, we might not agree, but we might agree. I mean, depending on whether or not you agree with me, but here's my stance on it, and here's the way I think about it. And then see if you can be like, hey, even if I disagree, I see how you got there. That's kind of my goal for anytime I'm trying to make a hot take or a point. I'm generally not out there to like win a debate. I'm not really the debate bro type. I might argue instinctively, but I'm not intending to do it. And I've never been on the debate team. That was never really my thing. And yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I have zero interest in having a podcast with Theo where he and I debate whether or not Elden Ring is good. It's like, I don't know. He'll beat me because he'll have better arguments. He will. I know Theo. He will have better arguments than I will if we're just looking at, hey, look, let's break down who's actually objectively correct in the most literal sense, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, like you do win. And if you call that an admission of defeat, oh, I mean, there you go. That's like, that doesn't bother me. I'm okay with admitting when my position might be rooted in personal feelings more than objective reasoning. I think you can make an argument for your personal feelings too. I think that's where people sometimes neglect the value of a feelings-based argument, because some people just go with their gut and they say it and they can't back it up by explaining it. Personally, though, I feel things, and then I think long and hard about why I feel them and what, especially when I'm thinking about video games in particular. I'm not saying everything, but with video games, I think, hey, why do I like this? What about this is interesting and fun, and what's making me want to play this over other games that are similar to it? And in thinking about that, I generally will craft observations that I think are at least reasonable. Like, I don't think anything I've said about Elden Ring here is like off the wall crazy hot take. I'm making it up. I think it's all within the pocket of I see how someone could get there. Well, I mean, and yeah, like that's possible. Not so grump. The script is about 500 to 1,000 words longer than the Metroid script, and it's just about one game. I might play some mods, and I might, and I'm definitely going to wait for the DLC, play the DLC, and then add my perspective on the DLC to the video, so it seems like more, not that it seems, so that it becomes more of a complete video, as opposed to, hey, here's one video and then the DLC. And I was trying to do that for God of War with Ragnarok, but I just couldn't figure out a way to properly write it without it just being a straight up kind of IGN style review, like the kind of thing that I used to do for Geeks and Gamers. And I can't think of anything that could have analyzed that game better than the EFAP episodes we did. So I was just like, well, I don't know that I really have any passion to do this, so I kind of gave up on it. But yeah, the Elden Ring one, though, I finished, and I think I had a lot of really solid points in there. Even if some of them are going to be hot takes, but I think what's really interesting is what I might end up eventually writing about Armored Core, because that was the other project. I'm going to go with the Chrono Trigger one, because especially I'm getting towards the end of Chained Echoes, and it's really good. It's really, really very good. So I do kind of want to stay on that stream for a little while. I probably won't make a Phantom Liberty video either, or at least not right away, because I've already made 2 Cyberpunk videos. I don't necessarily, and I mean a few others too, but 2 reviews, like a review of 1.0 and then a review of 1.6. I don't necessarily think I need to review 2.0, but hey, I mean, I might really click with Phantom Liberty in a big way and just be like, okay, yeah, no, I'm going to invest myself in a little bit more Cyberpunk, because I've already have videos where I say most of my thoughts on those games, so I could maybe make this a bit shorter and focused on the DLC itself. But Elden Ring I want to do as one like long man video. It'll probably be, I don't know, I don't want to give it a time limit, because I don't want to I'm definitely not going to pad it to hit a time limit. I never ever want to do that with a video. I'm going to make it as long as it needs to be, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be around the 2 hour and 15-minute mark, which is long for me. I'm not as good at going into super depth detail long man as Mauler. I'm just longer than a lot of other video guys. Sometimes. But good rant, not so grump. Thanks for being here and inspiring that.